is Teresita Blanco, the Artsy sister, and we're reading Saturnastra Woden. This is chapter 15, 1-5. I was close to formulating a coherent thought, but was interrupted by Woden opening the oven. And she then closed it again. Following, she removed Ethel's empanadas and placed them on the colander to get rid of the oil. Afterwards, she made the table for Ethel and me. She then poured a cold water for us, which I made into ice, and with this she prepared 2 glasses of iced tea. And once she served, she placed her food on the table, and we had waited for Woden to join us, but I was feeling particularly gluttonous, so I dug right in. I did hear Woden making something for herself, and after 10 minutes she came to join us. She had made for herself the most beautiful grilled cheese sandwich. And there was just something sweet and elegant about this dish, and the sweet potato fries were a welcome combination. And to wash it down, she drank apple juice. And we were thus engaged in our meal when we heard a new noise. And we saw a group of men carrying Woden's bed, and it was wrapped inside a box, wrapped in cloth for protection. Maneuvering the terrain was a bit of a pain for them, and stopping her meal, Woden said, "It started against the left wall with the feet facing the window." The men nodded and started their work, and they were rather good professionals, which was rare something indeed. And they were done and out of the house before Woden had finished half her sandwich. The men did not linger when they noticed what appeared to be levitating food, and one could see us, and he said below his breath, "Demons are feasting." With that delivery out of the way, we found ourselves with our own pleasant companies, and instead of going to the temple to investigate, Woden went to check out on the bed, and she patted the fabric surface with her hand before sitting down. She bounced her behind on it once or twice before lying completely back, and she was thoughtful all the while, and when she was satisfied with the feel of it, she said to Ethel, "See about killing the fool and fetch back the lilies who broke his covenant." "That is like the one thing," said Ethel, and she flew away and returned in a minute with Lily in the jar, and then she asked Woden, "Who am I killing again?" "This guy," said Woden, drawing a picture for her while still lying back. Ethel nodded and then went to town to look for her target, and she did not have to look long, and one of the observers who was keen on seeing a swift resolution to the problem guided her, and he was an elderly nobleman with a gentle expression, and Ethel observed the items in his home, and she moved the bench a little to the left, and then she pushed a man down the stairs. And on the last flight, his head smashed against the bench, and it was all over. And it was interesting to know Ethel's restraint in this simple mission. And most demons I knew would just go for the gore whenever asked to kill a fellow. Making it look like an accident would assure us more clients in the near future. We saw all this event through the eyes of one of the nearby observers, and he played out the scene by sending us images into our mind. And why a client wanted the nobleman dead was a matter of some debate. And normally his people were just watching the show, and they rarely had a dog in any fight. And I asked Woden, "So why do you feel like helping that lady to visit us?" "Because the bed is so freaking comfortable, and a bed like this is not often found every day in either in this galaxy or the next," said Woden coldly. "Is that truly the only reason?" I insisted. "Yes," said Woden and the little observer. "Did you know that there's a city local theater who does horror movies?" asked the observers. "Where did they even find movies?" asked Woden, surprised. "Oh, I mean plays," explained the observer. "I see," said Woden. And sitting up, she added, "We should go check it out, eventually maybe." And standing up, she drew a pentagram on the four bedposts, and she wrote the names Juan, Pedro, Lucas, and Mateo. And Woden repeated the process in the other 4 corners of the house, and with the words up, she felt the house was more or less protected. And by now Ethel had returned, and she made a motion to go inside, but she bashed her face against the wall. And Woden said, "Oops," and then she wrote on the wall Ethel and Bayl, and she also added the clause, "Do as you will as long as it doesn't do harm." With this change, Ethel was able to go inside, and she smiled when she got a good look at the bed, and she too lay down on it, and smiling she said, "Oh my, this is certainly a true bed. It certainly makes you want to take a good nap for the hell of it, doesn't it?" said Woden, looking through her things, and she eventually found a piece of silk, and together we sewed the bed covers and the comforters too, which we stuffed with cotton, and for the pillow we did not require any, and Woden always traveled with the same set of 6 pillows. and since the bed was only big enough for her, we did not factor into the equation for which we put it on a dour look. And while Woden lay down on the bed to enjoy herself, she closed her eyes, and she was neither awake nor asleep. She was probably daydreaming or something. And it was during such quiet times when I grew the most paranoid, and the last time we had a relaxing moment, something unpleasant had happened. And I sat down by the post of the bed, and at least there the 4 summons were keeping an eye out for danger, and it was safe. And I found the 4 fellows quite interesting, with their 4 pairs of wings, 2 of which were covering their eyes. And their hairs were like flames, and their hands and legs like bright scorching metal. And they were people I knew back when that meant something, and they stared at me cruelly with their distrust yet unresentful, earnest smile. I asked the one called Lucas, "You don't think those things will bother us here, do you? Their presence is weak here, and they prefer locations where suffering is commonplace. And so the bigger and more unjust it are, the more likely you're running into them," explained Lucas. "Ah, good to know," I said, not too convinced by this sanctimonious way of explaining things. Esther looked at me and asked, "What is that creature to you?" "Just a former friend," I said, pointing to the post called Lucas. "Formal," I said, "oh yes. People tend to lose friends when they turn into douches, and those who stay faithful to those who have done them wrong are nothing but fools," I said, stating a matter of fact. "I will keep that in mind when you eventually stab me in the back," said Eto, glaring at me, and sitting at Woden said, "What a bother. What's the matter? Can't sleep?" I asked concerned. "Not really," said Woden. "How come?" asked Eto. "Because you two won't shut the hell up," said Woden, annoyed. "My apologies," I said, bowing, and then I added, "Are we going to town?" "Might as well," said Woden. "We might run into them," I said, worried. "Might," said Woden, snorting. "Might. I wish it was might, and today is going to be a long night indeed. But things are going to go smoothly starting tomorrow, I suppose." "And pray do tell me, how do you know that? Is it because of your father's eyes?" I asked, looking at her real close in the face. "As far as futures I go, it is not an accurate way of seeing the future. And say I look at the tree, and I will say that it will be what it will be in 15 years or so, and what happens between then and now is cryptic. And just as the observer effect, seeing that particular future can cause its destiny to be warped," explained Woden. "Ah," I said, pretending to understand. "So when you say that those things are going away in 15 years, does looking at the future change your fate?" "The future is set in stone, my good friend, and it is the fruition of an ancient curse. Still, what happens between now and then is variable," explained Woden. "Sure it is," I said, unconvinced. "It certainly is," said Woden. "For example, that other time, we were going to go directly to the temple, but I chose to remain home and do nothing. And another time I would have given an actual poison to the lady instead of a lettuce. And also this time, for some reason, it chose to help out. And these are all trivial things of little consequences in the long scheme of things," said Eto. "And whether you do this or that doesn't really matter in the end." "And pray do tell me, what is the long scheme of things?" I asked. "It all depends on the will of the higher powers, and those who have the force enough to enforce their will upon others, while refusal is no longer an option," said Eto, looking at the roof. "And when did you get all philosophical on me?" asked Woden. "Well, it has been some time of peace, and people tend to be introspective when they are not worried about killing or getting killed," said Eto. And the little jabbing behind my head made me say, "So are we going to the temple to see about the guy that cures the madness curse?" "No, not really. There's no cure for it, other than just to wait to snap out of it or to stand in a place unaffected by the curse," explained Woden. "So are we just going to roost here for the time being?" I asked. "And why do you make it sound like a bad thing? It is fun to roost," said Woden. "I have done enough of that for today, and I want to see some action going on around me, and let's go out and do something, anything really," I insisted. "Fine, I will find a way to entertain you," said Woden, finally getting up. And we went outside and locked the door behind us, and the lock made in the form of a ward, and Woden placed on the entrance of the house 2 stone statues depicting little imps. And one resembled a little monkey with the face of a frog and the feet of a hawk, and the other had the face of a snake and the body of a kitten, with the tail and mane of a lion. And the snake face was called Sagan, and her companion was Ples, and they had been prettified for being douches, and now they had to serve as idols, and they would follow basic commands. And the downside to using their service is that they claim your soul if not given to a new master. So it's like one of those chain things, you know. Remember that those chain ladders that you're cursed if you don't pass it forward. So those statues that protect your stuff, they're cursed if you don't give them to a new person, if you don't eventually pass them forward. This assured them that they would always be doing something and not right away in somatic, and truth be told, neither of them had the power to claim anything remotely spiritual, but the threats alone sufficed. Place animating himself came to look at what I was writing and frowned and he said, "Hey, I'm not that weak." "Oh yes, you are, you are," I said mockingly while playing around with the frog cheeks. "And leave Place alone, and let's go to town and see if we run into something remotely amusing," said Woden, picking me up. And then she added to Place, "And see that nobody enters, but do not harm them." "And what about the garden?" asked Sanga, who always showed more care and concern for plants than for people. "I will put another fellow in charge of it. Think of another one as the last line of defense." And to protect the garden, Woden poured milk over the nearby trees, and this attracted some brownies. And mixed with the brownie was a lard, and she was dressed in a short toga with a sash around her waist, and she had short hair, and a bow. And Woden poured milk directly onto her bowl, which she drained to show her good disposition. And smiling, she said, "It is rare that we get summoned anymore, and your desire." "Just protect the garden, but do not harm," said Woden. "And how can we protect the garden without harming anyone?" asked one of the brownies, confused. "You folks are magic. Use your imagination," I said, annoyed. "Don't be mean, Bayl," said Woden, offering 4 cups of milk to the 4 brownies assembled. And I gave up sudden closing, and I used to seeing them often, and they usually live quite spaced out from one another, at least back in the old days. And the fact that there were 4 here gave me plenty to think about, and there was even a maiden too. And brownies were half the size of regular human, and they were brown skin, and the lady among them had a mane of curly black hair. And their anatomy was similar to little human children, and their hands and legs had no fingers, which reminded me a bit of a chibi. And these brownies were all dressed in fine elegantly with feather caps. "Our ancestors normally did not work in the morning," said one of the brownies. "But seeing as though we are wide awake, we might as well do something, seeing as there is nothing better to do," said another. "Well, I expect you to do your best as long as it causes very little harm," said Woden, bowing. "And there is some more milk somewhere in the property, and you're welcome to look for it as long as you do not pester my 2 imps," said Woden, starting to walk outside. We then started to follow behind, and the brownie saw us walking away with a bit of envy, and the last was the one who seemed in a particular good mood to be doing simple guard duty. And the last thing I saw was the maiden summoning a shield and a tiny sword, and then she started to walk back and forth in front of the garden, and it was cute whenever the summons took their job seriously. Sure, you could call beans and force them to do your bidding. However, you could not force them to put some effort into it, and effort in the end is what marks the difference in the long scheme of things. And the sun was starting to set over the horizon, and remembering dinner, Woden stopped and looked and took a step back before continuing her way to town. And she was thoughtful all the while, and Ethel eventually said, "We can skip at the meal." "That won't be necessary," said Woden, reaching into her sash, and from there she brought out a large lunchbox, and inside there was the ever-reliable grilled cheese sandwich, and we each took one, and we drank water. And after we drank our water, we were ready to take on the entire world. And the moment we stepped foot into town, people were giving us the usual stare, and the guards were already used to us, or should I say used to Woden, and most folks cannot see or would not see us. And then we first visited the market to do a bit of window shopping, and I made an approach Woden and asked, "Do you have a remedy for a backache?" And Woden reached into her pocket and brought out a clear flask with a white paste, and then she said to the maiden, "Rub a bit on your back right afterward to prevent cramps." "Thank you," said the maiden, bowing, and she started to walk away when Woden grabbed her hand to detain her. In front of she said, "I wasn't giving you the remedy for free, you know." "My apologies," said the maiden, flustered. "I will give it to you for free if you take me to the theater or something, and I am looking for a place to pass the time, and I'm not particularly fond of the bar scene," explained Woden. "There is but one theater in town, and it is only for the rich," said the maiden. "Just take me there. There is no door in town that can remain locked to me, should I particularly desire to enter," said Woden, sternly. "I don't think that will be necessary," said the maiden. "The doorman is always scouting for new talents, and you think that you will be his type." "You don't say," said Woden, frowning. "Yes, I do say," said the maiden. And a little procuress led us to a winding alley behind the market, and the theater had the look of a mansion with 3 floors, and the door was made of brass, and it had a tiny window with a door, and the maiden knocked on it, and a gruff sound came from the other side, and a mean-looking face peered out and said, "What do you want?" "The forest witch wants to see a show," explained the maiden. "What witch? You mean that tree bush behind you?" said the man. Woden came closer, and the man was able to take a better look at her, and it was a pretty dark, and the only noticeable aspect about Woden was the black hair and the mossy dress. And the green eyes studied Woden from head to toe, and he asked, "Are you a witch?" "Termagant is what I am, though I am magical as all," explained Woden. Termagant, said the man within, and then remembering the common meaning of the word, he said, "We are sold out, but I can squeeze you in the back if you don't mind standing." "It's fine, I guess. If the performance is worth it," said the Woden, smiling. "I will take my leave then," said the procuress. "Sure, fine, whatever," said Woden, not turning around. And the man drew a little closer and made a motion to grab Woden's fly swatter, but she stopped better just to restrain her most common impulse. Woden did notice the attempt of robbery, and on normal days she would have smashed the base of the teeth to a bloody pulp, but she was more interested in the theater at the moment, and the man closed the door and started fiddling with the locks, and he left the latch on and opened the door part way, and then he said to Woden, "Do you have any money?" "I have 4 tomatoes, an avocado, and 4 potatoes," said Woden, holding up a bag. "Oh, I love avocados," said the man, taking the bag of sundries, and Bayhausen told he generally loved avocados. And the entrance to the theater was a little dark, and the wallpapers were red with black patterns, and the floor had an elegant checkerboard design, and the man was a white-faced clown with a naturally wide, short nose, large lips, and silky eyebrows, and he had the ears painted red, and he was using his natural afro, though dyed at the crimson, and he had a blue cape and costume painted of different fancy colors, and tied to his head there was a tiny hat. And his most distinctive feature was his large, expressive brown eyes. And while he was guiding Woden to the hallway, he stopped a moment to look at me, and I stared back at him, and I said with a creepy voice, "You're going to die in 40 days. Etta said to me, "That's mean." So I said, "Right for staring at me like I'm some kind of freak," I said, frowning. "Is he really going to die in 40 days, or are you just teasing him?" asked Ethel. "If I kill him in 40 days, then my prophecy is going to come true," I said, chuckling. "Good point," said Ethel. And after 10 minutes of walking, I noticed that the douche was giving us a roundabout, and we had passed by the entrance a third time, and eventually the clown man asked, "So what's your name?" "Woden," said Woden, rolling her eyes. "And what brings you to my humble abode?" he asked. "Isn't it obvious?" said Woden, folding her arm. "My apologies," he said, feeling sheepishly, and he opened the door that was right in front of us when we first arrived, and apparently the main hallway that connected all of the other rooms looked the same, and this explained why it seemed like the doors repeated themselves over and over. Only now the house was round-shaped, which was ambitious for its time, and the venue had 2 large floors, and the top balcony had 5 rows of seats, and the ones in the bottom were arranged with tables with foods and drinks. Only now they had enough seats to accommodate 130 people, and Woden entered from the bottom floor, and he directed her to a table that had already 3 folks, and this was a welcome surprise considering that a page ago he said that we would have to be standing up, and he said to Woden, "You don't mind sharing a booth? It's fine," said Woden, taking a seat. And the two lads were sitting together did mind, and the man got up and he grabbed the clown's arm, and he said, "And we asked for a private booth." And I said I would see what I could do," said the clown, and sneering he said, "And if you want some privacy, you came to the wrong place, my friend. Nobody gets special treatment unless they are willing to pay for it." "Seems fair enough," said Woden, resting her face on her hands, and the pair looked at one another. And after the man looked through his coin purse, he reluctantly decided to put up with Woden's presence, and the clown then departed, and a clown lady came by to see Woden, and her makeup reminded me of a tramp, with a wide mouth, an eyeshadow, and a red nose, and her dress might be considered immodest for medieval standards, but it was pretty tame in comparison to my modern sensitivities. And the blue dress she was wearing had short sleeves, and it showed her shoulders, and it went as low as her knees. And the woman handed Woden a menu and asked, "And what are you having, honey?" And Woden looked at the menu over the top and grimaced, and being thankful to have eaten before arriving, she said, "I want goat milk." "We don't sell goat milk," said the tramp, frowning. "Well, you have goats, don't you?" And hear them bleeding while I was outside, so just get your bucket and get me some goat milk if it pleases you. And there's a good tip for you if you would indulge me, said Woden, smiling. Tip, asked the tramp. Gratuity, alms, a little something extra. Whatever it is that you call it here, said Woden. The lady sitting behind Woden eyed her from head to toe before saying, do you even have money? I have something even better, said Woden, taking out a tomato. We don't take vegetables as payment, said the tramp, laughing. Yes, you do. How else do you think I got inside, said Woden, smiling. I'm going to have to talk with Safer, said the tramp, departing. What a bother, said Woden, rubbing her tomato. And it was such a nice plum one, just perfect for the feast. And taking out a bowl, Woden hacked the tomato into thin slices, and she then poured yellow lemon over it, and she proceeded to eat it, while looking at the red curtains. And after eating 2 slices, she said, I'm bored. When is this stupid show going to start? Sometimes it doesn't start at all, said the lady, teasing. And whatever do you mean, asked Woden. Throw a fit and demand a refund, and there's nothing else you can do about it, and we will do more, but it is the only theater in town, and it's either this, the gaming house, the bar, or the brothel, said the lady sadly. Are those my only 4 options? Asked Woden, frowning. One can always hunt, said the gentleman. I'm not a big fan of hunting animals for fun, said Woden, frowning. Well, then I suppose you might not like tonight's performance, said the gentleman. What? Asked Woden, somewhat irritated. Don't you know they are burning a live cat on stage, and last week it was a horse, and the poor Steve made a real maze running around wildly till he was clobbered to death, said the gentleman, with a serious look on his face. Now I know that you're just messing with me, said Woden, chuckling. No, I am dead serious, said the gentleman. And you are neither of those things at the moment, but if you insist on trying to fool me, I can at least make you dead, said Woden, before taking another slice of red tomato. Oh, stop messing with the girl, dearie, said the maiden. Yes, dearie, listen to the girl who is definitely not your wife, said Woden, smiling. Fine, whatever, said the gentleman, he added. Martha did not send you here, did she? I know plenty of Marthas, but I never met your Martha, and it isn't my business how large of a horns your wife is growing, said Woden. Wait, what? I don't get it. What do you mean that she's growing horns, said the lady. If someone cheats at you, you grow horns, or so I heard, and I think it's probably an old saying because I've never seen it happen. The mother often at times attests to the veracity of the statement, said Woden, more to herself. And so let's leave it here. Bye-bye and God bless when the performance is about to start.